Let me start out by saying good morning, everyone, or in Cantonese, Zhou Sun. As the mayor of perhaps the most international city on earth, where virtually all of the world's languages are spoken on our streets, I constantly work to improve my command of Cantonese and of Mandarin as well. But now I'm going to try to deliver the rest of this morning's remarks in another language that I also keep struggling to master, and that is English. Seriously, it's an honor to be selected to chair the C40 Climate Leadership Group for the next 2 years, and it really is a privilege to ask all of you to join me now in giving a very big round of applause to David for his exceptional leadership of C40 during these last 2 pivotal years. David, thank you so much. I think it was evident at last December's UN conference in Copenhagen, where David made such a passionate case for giving the world's cities a greater role in combating global climate change, and his own beautiful city of Toronto, the work that he has done to begin dramatically shrinking Toronto's carbon footprint, I think, demonstrates leadership by example at its very best, and it may be his greatest legacy to the city that he served so well. You should know that David is finishing his last term as mayor of Toronto, and I don't know what he's going to wind up doing. It'll be something where he is going to continue to make a difference in this world, and I think we all wish you all the best, and make sure that you stay friends, and I want to be able to call you and get your advice on what do I do next. Let me also extend my thanks to our host, Chief Secretary Tang, and the government and people of the Special Administrative Region of Hong Kong, including Christine Low and her colleagues at Civic Exchange, Daja, and we are enormously grateful for your hospitality. We also salute the steps that you are taking to make what has been been for centuries one of the world's prominent centers of commerce, a center of environmental action in this century as well. And I also want to say how much that I am looking forward to working with São Paulo Mayor Gilberto Kasob and his team in preparing our next C40 Mayors Summit in his marvelous city next May. And I would urge all of you to come. São Paulo is a wonderful city. The people are as friendly and as nice as you'll ever want to meet. And if it turns out to be half as good as Hong Kong, it will be something where we can all make a big difference. Let me start out by saying, my colleagues, it was just 5 short years ago that 18 of the world's great cities came together to share best practices and make common cause in the greatest global challenge of our time, and that is reducing greenhouse gas emissions that contribute so heavily to climate change. We all recognize that cities, where for the first time in history half of the world's population now live, and which together account for more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gas production, holds the future to humanity. It is in the power of all of us sitting in this room to fulfill that future with promise, not peril. And we recognize that the tasks before us are not simple ones. We've seen, I think, again and again how national governments have struggled both at home and on the international stage to take climate change actions. Cities must learn from that experience. We must be bolder, we must be more collaborative, and we must be more determined. Together, we have to fill the vacuum of leadership ourselves. And it's true that this vacuum puts heavy burdens on responsibilities on all of us, but my colleagues, we must shoulder them. We must, not only because some of the greatest hazards of climate change, such as rising sea levels and increasingly extreme and destructive weather patterns, threaten our cities most directly. We must be not only because the positive steps that we take here and now can bless the people we serve with greater health and prosperity, but we also must act now because failing would shift even heavier burdens onto the backs of our children and their children. And as stewards of our cities, this is not a legacy we are willing to accept. And it is why this organization must continue to grow even stronger, even more active, and even more ambitious. From its original nucleus of 18 cities, as you know, the C40 group has expanded to now include 40 members and 19 affiliates. Its partnership with the Clinton Climate Initiative and with former President Clinton has built it into one great organization, one befitting our role in the world, because together, the cities that we represent in C40 account for approximately 21% of the global gross domestic product. Roughly 12% of the world's carbon emissions are produced in our metropolitan areas, and nearly 1 out of every 12 people on Earth lives in or near our city limits. Our profile is so high and impact so great that the actions we take often produce positive ripple effects around the globe. London, for example, instituted congestion pricing as a way to reduce auto emissions and support mass transit. And today, at least 9 other C40 cities are following suit or are prepared to. Bogota's extensive bus rapid transit system now moves more than 1 million people through the streets of that city each day, and other cities, including my own, are following Bogota's lead. Our host city of Hong Kong, like Sao Paulo and other municipalities across the globe, is replacing fossil fuels with organic waste as ways to generate electricity. And I'm proud to say that under our administration, New York has enacted a set of green building laws that mandate the most ambitious effort that any city in the United States has yet taken to make existing buildings more energy efficient. Implementing these laws will save New Yorkers $700 million a year in energy costs, greatly enhance our economic competitiveness, create more than 17,000 much-needed new, and shrink our carbon footprint by a size equivalent to that of an entire city of roughly 500,000 people. These measures are key elements in our competitive Plan YC program to reduce greenhouse gas output in New York City by 30% by the year 2030, an agenda that we unveiled on Earth Day in 2007 and that we will present in an updated form at the Sao Paulo Summit next May. Over the past 5 years, our cities have, in short, demonstrated that we are prepared to boldly confront climate change. As mayors, we know that we don't have the luxury of simply talking about change without delivering it. As Mayor Millet put it in Copenhagen, nations talk, cities act. And that is why, even as we ceaselessly continue to urge national and international action to address this mounting global crisis, we also must and will redouble our own local efforts to make a sustainable world a reality. Achieving sustainability, that is the goal on which all our efforts will focus over the next 2 years. To move towards it, we will employ 4 key strategies that we have devised in consultation and collaboration with you, and I wanted to briefly outline them right now. First, even as we continue to advance initiatives that Mayor Miller and his predecessors have launched, we will also broaden the C40 agenda. We will, of course, continue to focus on such long-standing priorities as those addressed in yesterday's roundtable discussions, encouraging any energy-efficient building retrofits, and promoting the use of electric-powered vehicles. The reasons for this really are compelling. Consider this, in just 19 key C40 cities, there are more than 20 million vehicles. Converting even 1% of them to electric power would pay enormous environmental and economic dividends. Because make no mistake about it, the days of oil-fueled autos are numbered, and the cities that lead the transition to new alternatives will become more attractive places for economic investment. But there are also many other ways to make our city sustainable. In water conservation, in waste recycling, and in greening our cities, streets, and public places. Many of us are already at the forefront of action, and C40 will now join you in advancing these initiatives. Doing that will require even greater sharing of our success, and that leads us to our second strategy, encouraging C40 cities to cooperate more directly and closely with one another. We recognize that cities have differences in climate, in geography, in population density, and in legal, economic, and cultural frameworks in which they work. So our responses to climate change must be well tailored to those realities as much as a Hong Kong suit. But in major cities, we also face many similar challenges. And so, even as we acknowledge our differences, wherever possible, we can and must work directly with one another, because doing so can have a powerful magnifying effect. For example, 25 C40 members have regulatory influence over taxi fleets that combined have more than 1 million vehicles. Think of that, 1 million plus autos, the most iconic vehicles in our downtowns. We can start to work together to make more efficient and less polluting by sharing approaches to rules and incentives, by perhaps standardizing their design or performance benchmarks, and maybe someday even by coordinating their purchases. By together, we can enlarge the scale of our success. And in line with that, I'm honored that the joint U.S.-China Cooperative on Clean Energy has just translated New York's Plan YC into Chinese. I cannot wait to read this on the flight back to New York. Henry, you'll have to do a little bit of translation for me, some characters I'm not familiar with.